Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to Once Upon a Time in the Outer Rim. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me is my good friend and yours, Alex Kane.
How's it going?
Oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's been a lot. We, of course, didn't record for the last week because I was at Star Wars Celebration, which was amazing. And now we've got 2 episodes to cover. Although we might be a little bit briefer on these ones, we'll catch up anything that we felt like we missed for the finale. Sound good, Alex?
Yeah. Yeah, it's you got kind of like a trio of episodes that are very thematically, well, presumably the third one is the finale will fit really nicely, and Guns for Hire kind of leads into chapter 23 really well. So yeah, we can touch on these again for sure.
Yeah, if we miss anything or if we feel like we need to come back. Mainly because I am recording obscenely early in the morning and you're recording very, very late at night. And
we're not at our optimal right now, but
you know, it's the world. We're in different time zones right now, and it's a whole thing. All right, let's get going. So we have Guns for Hire, which of course is this epic episode that I felt like was made in a lab for me. How did you like it?
Well, I'm definitely no longer the first person to think this, but it was very much like a Clone Wars episode in live action, which I appreciated a lot. It feels like Bryce is very good at that. Bryce is very much in the mode of the Clone Wars when she directs, and this one maybe more so than ever before.
Oh, yeah. This episode really touched on many of the things I love about Star Wars. There's sort of a genre-esque idea about the episode. Like it sort of is following this like cop procedural overall. But there's also like some thematic elements about how we move past conflict and how do we build a society that is better than it was before. And it's repeated multiple times in this same episode, which is really interesting. So it's done first with the Quarrens and the Mon Cal. It's done on Plaisir 15, and then it's done with the Mandalorians. And in the end, the movie that this episode reminded me of the most was Zootopia.
Oh, interesting. I saw that when it was like new on DVD like a million years ago. But it definitely was that kind of like O'Malley's theme or like 1960s Star Trek idea of like we have this perfect utopia except for this like one footnote that's not so great, which I love that kind of Star Trek story. I
couldn't think of any other story but like that, but yeah, you're right. Like it felt very Star Trek. It felt very like there's a paradise, but except for this one thing of this holdout concept, right?
Yeah. I thought of that like very strange Star Trek episode where like they got rid of war, I think, and then the solution was like that they play out the battles as like computer simulations, and then I think they might like kill off the people who died in the simulation afterward or something. Like it's like really absurd and on the nose, but it's a kind of fun episode where they're playing with big ideas that Star Wars sometimes plays with, but is sort of shy about. I love that when they do that stuff with the droids. There's like with this episode and the following episode, there are pairs of things. There's like you have the star-crossed lovers, and you have like the fish species that are like an Amidala Reylo thing, and then you have the same thing with like Lizzo and Jack Black and
like technically Din and Beau, right?
Din and Beau, yes. There's a lot of echoes all across these 2 episodes, and this notion of walking between worlds and
like finding a middle way between sort of split people together. That is like what everything, like every Reylo ever wanted out of Star Wars, and they put it into a same episode 3 times.
Yeah.
What?
And this that idea of like stopping physical conflict. And yeah, I don't know. It's good stuff. There's like too much plot and things packed into these 2 episodes for me to possibly remember everything, but it's a lot of just playing with big ideas that, like we sort of see the little like biblical echoes or like the religious commentary in this show going all the way back to season 1, but these 2 episodes get into some meaty little bits occasionally, which is fun.
It absolutely is, yeah. Let's dig into that intro scene with Captain Shoggoth, our Quarren captain.
Yeah, in the very
beginning. Yeah. So she's just a captain, and she thinks that she's being approached by an ex-imperial, so kind of introducing more of that idea of the imperial warlords running protection, right? So like charging people for protection for different quadrants. And she's more than willing just to be like, we'll pay you, I'm not willing to fight at all. And it turns out it's actually Axe Woves, who's been hired by the Mon Calamar Viceroy to return the Mon Calamari Prince, who is her lover.
Right, yeah.
And it's Shoggoth is a Cthulhu mythos, basically great elder, which is an interesting tie. I haven't thought about Cthulhu mythos since Willow, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? I think this is just like a sort of like a tableau almost, like, or like a mini concept. I don't know that these characters will come back. I think it was just a way to introduce Axe Woves, those Mandalorian mercs, and that really they're very loyal to whoever pays them.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's important, that they're very loyal to whoever pays them.
Interesting.
You don't think so?
The idea that like if Mandalore is thriving, then they'll stay home and protect the castle, maybe.
I don't know. They went through a lot of effort just to prove that this group of Mandalorians can't be, I guess, bought by the highest bidder, but will stay loyal to whatever they've agreed to do.
Oh, yeah. It's like that Good, the Bad, and the Ugly scene where he repeatedly says, like, once I'm paid, I always carry the job through. That kind of, like, very Western, like, moral code thing. Yeah. Like,
and so, like, this gets into, like, this episode and next episode, but it struck me as super interesting that they go out of their way to do an entire scene to prove Axe Woves will do whatever he is like agreed to do that he has been paid for. So what if Gideon is paying him?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Since they've got that light cruiser or whatever, like that Rebels. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, it's just, and I don't know what's going to happen in the finale, obviously, but there's a lot of reaction to what happens in the second episode. And people are assuming just because the title says something, which we have experience with Jon Favreau writing titles of episodes that don't make sense, that it's like it's like Hux from The Rise of Skywalker. I'm the spy, and everyone's like trying to figure out who the multiple spies are because it's plural, and they're like, who is it? And it could be Axe Woves if the plural actually is something that we need to consider.
So, yeah, interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, there's people pointed out the clone tanks like near the beginning of the episode, I think, that you kind of see in the background. Everybody's like, oh, who's been cloned, assuming they're clones. I mean, we kind of get the vibe that they are.
Well, in this episode?
I think it's it's at the beginning of the second one. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. That could just be like they've collected separatist like stuff, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to this episode. So our captain, Shoggoth, says goodbye to the Mon Calamari prince, who is returned to his family, presumably. I want more of this story. I love it. It's high drama. I love weird aliens in love. Let's do it. Where's the comic? Where's the mini special?
Yeah. And the voices of these actors have great voices.
Yeah.
Like absolutely. It really sells the, obviously like the Return of the Jedi aliens are, sort of like fun and absurd in Star Wars, but like the performances are great and completely sell.
I'm obsessed with the fact that her like corn face tentacles like wrapped all over his face.
Yes, that was
great.
Cute. It was good.
It's great. Yeah. Anyway, so they're returned back, and we have Mando and Beau arriving. Going towards Plazier 15. Because that's where our good Mandalorian mercs have been basically stationed as a paid-for army, which is like, how rich is this planet?
Yeah.
This planet has a lot of money.
It definitely made me think of like when I went to Disney World as a kid, like the Epcot Center and like the monorail.
Like Tomorrowland. Yeah.
Tomorrowland is in my notes. Like it's very much that vision of like the perfect crystalline city, I guess. I don't know.
And I thought that this whole concept of the city itself, where they're basically taking old technology and giving it new purpose, new life, compared to what the Republic is doing, where it's taking all of the ex-Imperial stuff and like literally destroying it, to be really, really fascinating. It's like, is there a new life for this, for the droids, for the technology? We're getting a reuse of the technology as well, with the Mandos taking over the Imperial ships as well. There's something symbolic happening there, where compared to the New Republic that can't even touch like perfectly good technology or resources that were used by the Republic because they're somehow tainted.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we've seen these live action Star Wars shows do stuff like this before, where we're like, they're saying something about, like the mythos of Star Wars and like the business of doing, Disney Plus and whatnot, like with the Naboo starfighter that is kind of unrecognizable by the time it's done. It becomes sort of like, just a Mando hot rod, but made from George's parts, so to speak, or Doug Chang's parts. And I don't know. Yeah, it's always fun when they're playing with all these different droids and people are spotting like things from like the expanded universe and things from like some obscure comic and whatnot.
Yeah, no, and like it comes down to more than just Easter eggs. This one actually like has a story element to it, which I really, really appreciate. When it can go beyond just, hey, the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme. There's actually a reason all of these things are in this episode.
Right. It's like there's like life cool. Life beyond your military service and things like that, right? That idea that well, like
you can have a second life. Yeah. So Bo-Katan, Grogu, and Din Djarin are all arriving on the planet, and they are taken off to the side forcibly and put in to have an audience with the Duchess and
Captain Bombardier.
Captain Bombardier, which is a name that is so on the nose for me. This, of course, is Lizzo and Jack Black, which I am dead. I'm shocked. I'm in love with the fact that Lizzo and Jack Black are now characters in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, they're canon. Like I love how you hear his voice and you just instantly hear like,
you're like, oh
God,
yeah, that's
Jack Black.
That's Jack Black. But what's oh man, okay, so let's talk about Lizzo first. So she sort of is like a stand-in for Beau's family.
Yeah.
Because she's a duchess.
The headdress and stuff. Yeah.
And the headdress, and she's like parallel to Satine as like this sort of leader who's very peaceful and was royalty, but yet has stepped aside to have democracy in place. So she ends up becoming sort of like a constitutional monarchy in a way. And then we have Jack Black, whose character Captain Bombardier being, of course, the famous Canadian company that makes jets and airplanes, but also was involved as making military, providing jets and planes for the military as well. So like technically like a military contractor in Canada. And so these names are like on the nose for sort of what they're trying to say here and how it's paralleled to Din and Beau.
Yeah, Din and Beau. And then, also like you had that portion of like Mandalorian Society in Satine's day that's like, we want to be like
artistic.
War,
and both things exist in the culture of Mandalore, and they've shown that since like Rebels, and they've shown that in Clone Wars, that there's more to the Mandalorians than just fighting. And you and I have talked about this like throughout the story, and I've talked about it online, that like I'm frustrated that we only get one view of the Mandalorians in this, that weapons are their religion. Well, yes, that's great, but also they do art, and to have like a balanced society, like they need to have both of these aspects. But since they're only on the run right now, they only have the one.
Yeah, Sabine was the first like Mandalorian character that I really connected with, I feel like, because of the art thing, the painting and graffiti. I loved that.
Yeah.
That was fresh. Yeah, I do like how they're sort of working elements of Rebels into the show, but they've saved a lot of it too for future shows.
Yeah, I liked how there's so many cool aliens in this scene. Like they're all just like hanging around, and Jack Black's like, I hope you like secretions. Sip sip. In the most Jack Black way. They sit down and they're having dinner, and they're explaining sort of their like what's going on with their city and their planet. And we have the frog people are sitting at the table, which is so cool. And Liz was like, can I hold the baby? And Din's like, no, he doesn't like to be held by other people. And Grogu's like, I'm going to Lizzo. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, like somersaults through the air.
Yeah. We're getting more of this thing that I really wanted first season, which is almost like Grogu becoming more independent in these two episodes.
Oh yeah, big time in the next one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really fun. Yeah.
It is a lot of fun. And we sort of have this I don't know. It's really cool how Jack Black calls Beau Princess Kryze.
Oh yeah,
and like just sort of like keeping on reminding both of them where their background comes from. And this is where like there's like almost again this like Zootopia concept where Din and Beau come from very different backgrounds. That's played up through the episode, but they end up being sort of like this cop procedural where they're investigating crimes, like the detective film noir feel is throughout this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, both these episodes play with that for sure.
Yeah. They're told there's a problem with the droids on the planet, and they're told to go and speak with Commissioner Hellgate, who's played by Christopher Lloyd. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really fun in this role. It's reminiscent of Tim Blake Nelson in Minority Report, like the one guy at the like control panel who sees all and has the switch, and like just like an outsized
Yeah.
amount of power for like one weird little guy to have. But it's really fun.
We talked about how there was a lot of Philip K. Dick before, and it's
Yeah.
like coming back. Does Favs like Minority Report?
Yeah, that's true. We've talked maybe like 2 other episodes this season. We've mentioned like Philip K. Dick stuff, and then here we get
Yeah.
I thought this was a very Minority Report scene, his introduction, and then also we get the sound effect of the like police hover vehicle pretty soon in the episode as well.
This is an episode about showing the competence of both these characters, especially Beau, seeing how good Din is at everything that he's like come across. And I mean, primarily first season, like we're not getting a lot of like, what was Din good at in the second season? It's all like first season stuff that's coming back to us. I found it interesting that this society is a direct democracy, which is like the idea that citizens directly vote on everything.
Right, yeah. There's not like all this corruptible.
Yeah, exactly.
Mess.
Well, I mean, you know,
There
whether
is,
that's
but
whether that's easily maintainable, having everybody have an opinion. I don't know. Direct democracies are always really fascinating and can be enabled by technology. It's a fascinating concept to look into. Like basically you vote for everything on your phone.
Yeah. There's a novel by Tobias Buckell. What was that called? I think it was called Sly Mongoose. And there was like basically a society that lived like in a floating city, kind of like Bespin, like above a gas giant. And like it's basically like the science fiction version of like, you know, everybody on Twitter tweeting out what they think should happen. And then that's like, okay, it's been voted. This is what we're doing. And I don't know. It's kind of funny. It sort of pokes holes in the, you know, the flaws of that.
If this was a Star Trek episode, the director democracy, there would be some sort of fatal flaw about it. That's never brought up.
Yeah, it's like a good episode to like set up future like philosophical problems. I don't know like that it goes super deep because it's already got like so many things that it's juggling. Like it's like the side quest that you go on while you're trying to do another side quest before you get to the main quest in like a video game. But
that's a lot.
You know,
yeah.
I do love the like, you know, some of the expository dialogue where they're talking about like how because they're not allowed to have like a formal military, like their resources go to like just helping their citizens and like allowing them to not work and stuff. And then you know, immediately you find out, well, there's Ugnaughts who keep the droids going and the droids do the work. And so it's like, somebody's working, you know, or you've got the surveillance crew monitoring the, you know, computers. And so that, you know,
the society is a lot. Yeah. The society is still a lot more complicated than what the people who are kind of enjoying, like just the, you know, the pleasures of the society. There are still people who keep it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, like Din and Beau go and speak with the Ugnaughts who worked on reprogramming all of the droids. And first Beau insults the droids, and then Din is able to use his quill speak to sort of sit down with them and convince them to help them and talk about like, you know, hey, where this is going to happen again. And it was really nice to kind of see Din's like skills with the Ugnaughts come back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's somebody who sort of mindfully, and I mean, obviously he can be a jerk about droids or certain other things, but like he's very good at interfacing with cultures in like a thoughtful, kind way. And like seeing him do that, you know, he's someone who came from like one society that was sort of destroyed and then, which we don't know all that much about, I guess, and then had to sort of integrate into Mandalorian culture. and sort of rewire like how he interacts and things like that. And, you know, it's not like he was born with that helmet on his head. And,
yeah,
you know, so, it's that kind of extends to his interactions with, you know, the Bounty Hunters Guild and Grief Karga and the Jedi stuff and Boba or, the Ugnaughts especially. I love it.
Yeah, no, and he also, he did that with the Sand People as well.
Oh, right, yes.
Right,
yeah.
they, you know, like he seems to be like this person that's very open to accepting others and trying to, you know, be respectful of their cultures, which is really great. And I do like how they were hired because sort of like Jack Black is like, we're a pluralistic society, so we accept that weapons are your religion.
Yeah, so good.
It's like a way around it. And certainly there's like when they deal with the droid and he kicks the droid to get it to like fight him. It's like it felt like good cop, bad cop pretty much from this point on. Because like Din being like, you know, the bad cop and Beau being like the good cop because he's the one who's like, she's like questioning the B1 battle droid. He's like kicking them. And then that theme of like them playing those roles continues almost the whole episode. It's found out that he had this one droid had a spark plug in it, or a spark plug, and it's like a thing from a droid bar called the Resistor. I'm obsessed with this place.
Oh yeah, it was so cool. Like they walk in and it's like such a great comedic moment where they all sort of like stop like a record and just stare.
Yeah, I mean it's like very anti A New Hope with the cantina.
Yeah, we don't serve their kind here. And we don't their kind.
We don't serve those fleshy things here. Why are you here? But it turns out that this droid bar sort of feeds all its patrons all the same thing, which is Nepenthe, a sort of like fluid that helps sort of refresh and helps their code and helps them sort of stabilize, I guess. Do you know what Nepenthe is?
No, I didn't look that up.
It's actually from mythology.
Nice.
It is. It sort of translates to be a drug of forgetfulness, and it's from the Odyssey. It's something that Helen of Troy took basically to forget her woes. A lot of people theorize that it was probably opium. This is like an opium den for droids.
There's a big theme of post-war depression, like across these two episodes. Like the ghosts of the Clone Wars are like ever present in these two episodes, and
then also like the Empire and, you know, rebels, right? So like it's also like whatever, and this comes down to the idea that like as much as like the Republic tries to destroy the Shadow, right? Literally like destroying this old way of being with the Empire, these things still exist. People still remember, right? So you have to figure out a different way to work through these things in your society. I like how the bartender droid is like, you know, many of my patrons are very worried if these sort of malfunctions keep on continuing, we will all head towards the scrap heap. Whereas we've found a new life here, a new, you know, a second chance. You know, organics lives are so short. You know, it's nice to still have a purpose.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this place. It's so good.
Yeah, it's it's all about, of course, the pluralism thing feeds into this too a little bit, which is like, you know, I took a lot of humanities classes in college, and all these religious scholars of like the 20th and 21st centuries, they seem to agree that like the only way for religion to continue to carry forward and to matter and to be a good force in the society is to be pluralistic in some way, right? Like you can't just go crusading and killing each other. Like that's not going to work. But also like this idea too that if you were a separatist or you're like a former imperial in the New Republic era or what have you, like you have to heal and move forward. I recently rewatched Mad Men, and like, the year is like 1965 or whatever. And one of the characters who fought in World War II is like really racist for World War II reasons in the Pacific. And it's like, you got to move on. It's been 25 years. These are not the same people that you fought. Like, it's a good message for Star Wars, that love thy enemy kind of thing.
Well, and like, you're never going to be able to destroy everything. So you have to figure out like, what is the way forward and where is the point where you're like, this conflict is done and we have to move forward from today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like the droids,
build.
some of them were from the separatist time. Some of them were Imperials, and they knew that they were basically done for if they stayed like in the Republic, whereas they found second chance in Plaisir 15. So it turns out that one batch of Nepenthe had affected all of these different droids. And this Nepenthe was tracked back to the Commissioner Hellgate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great name.
Yeah. And he had basically been a holdout, not a separatist, but like he didn't believe that societies could move forward together, and was very anti Captain Bombardier and the changes of the society by integrating the shadow aspects of it. Like essentially the society, the utopia is, people have work that they're satisfied with at different levels. Humans don't want to work at all. And I guess everybody has a place in this society, and he's like not a separatist, but like he's from that Dooku camp.
He idolized Dooku. Yeah.
He idolized Dooku and said there is no way that we can be together.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I kind of associate Dooku in my mind with that idea that like you can't like heal like ills in society. You have to root them out, and that idea of like if the Jedi are imperfect, well, we must fight them, kill them, whatever, like turn against them, and
instead of actually trying to like, I don't know, work towards a better society in general with these disparate parts. Like this is just a big metaphor for integrating pieces of the whole, the collective unconscious, right? And finding a better way forward. I don't know. This episode is very, very deep, like you said, and does it in such a fun and entertaining way.
It doesn't feel deep at all, but it is. It like, if you begin to like think about it, it's like, we're using like droids and like this goofy murder mystery to illustrate like kind of like the essential conflict between like Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma, like that, like that kind of, Star Wars debate, like, can we hug it out versus, do we have to like, bomb some, like some cops in the street or whatever. It's really, I don't know. It's a fun thing to think about in Star Wars. Certainly in like, I don't know, such a lighthearted, like colorful episode, but yet it stays true to all those sort of big questions that George and others care about,
They, and this sort of ends up coming down to like one of my favorite lines, which the Duchess says, like, is the galaxy not big enough for forgiveness?
Oh, I loved that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like to forgive former Imperials, to try to find a new way forward. She ends up not forgiving Commissioner Hellgate right away and sentencing him to exile on a nearby moon, and he's taken away. And then the Duchess gives the key to Plaisir to Kreese and Din and Beau and Din, and they said they're always welcome here, and then she knights Grogu, and now he is a Jedi Mandalorian Knight.
So
I
good.
love it so much.
It's such it feels aesthetically like those early George drafts where
Yeah.
he was sort of hung up in that very like what he must have pictured like Alderaan or Aquilay or whatever he called it, Naboo, at the time, like
Yeah.
that sort of vision of what Princess Leia's world would have been that we never really saw in that movie. But like, I don't know. This feels like that kind of like, that sort of Alderaan society, especially as,
Yeah.
people would have pictured something like that in the 60s or 70s.
I've always wanted to have like it, sort of like the city state idea, but with planets where there's like independent royalty in all of these places, and actually have Jedi Knights be knights. We're sort of getting that knightliness, as we've called out, that there's a lot of like Arthur and the Round Table, Camelot feelings with the Mandalorians. Like these are all errant knights that don't have a purpose, and it's really cool that we're getting this more directly to say like this might be where they head from a society perspective.
Yeah,
I love it. Beau and Din are able to return to go and visit axe wolves and the Mandalorians, who the Mandalorian privateers, and Din's like really taking second seat in many of these episodes, and is like, well, now Beau, you got to figure this out.
Yeah,
and axe wolves and Beau end up fighting because of the hey, who's in charge of this, and the we must have Mortal Kombat to solve things as Mandalorians.
Yeah.
She beats him, and he still refuses to go with her. And Din's like, you know what? I was beaten by a monster, and then that monster was beaten by Beau, so she's the winner of the Darksaber.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, they're gonna have to fight each other, and Fobbs is like, I don't want to have them fight each other. I'll figure out another way.
Yeah, he got to just be the damsel instead. And
exactly.
They also do the whole philosophical debate here, which again, it's like really like a big, meaty philosophical thing for like a very lighthearted Star Wars episode to get into. But like not only are they acting out like the fan discussion about like, okay, like you have all these different ideas of Mandalorian culture being introduced in this show versus like maybe the Legends era novels versus the Clone Wars, and like so they're synthesizing all those ideas in a way that makes perfect sense, but you also get into like that real world religion thing about birth versus belief, and ultimately they settle on this idea that like, well, all these religions began not with blood, but with the oath and the pledge, and that idea of like, I will follow, and which is, really like, this is the way, I guess. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It all kind of leads to like unity is better than not unity, division and fighting. It all kind of points to Mandalore. Yeah,
it does. Yeah. It definitely seems like it's the best way. And then the episode is sort of wrapped up with the shot of Beau activating the Darksaber, and that's where we end the episode. And what an episode! Bryce Dallas Howard continues to not be beat.
She's great. Yeah, she's I think in a lot of ways she's like perfectly translates sort of like George's vision of like the galaxy and that Clone Wars aesthetic. Like she's mastered it. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then like also interprets Jon Favreau's scripts in an enjoyable way.
Yeah. Like the humor in that episode where all the droids turn and stare, like that just gets me. Like
Yeah.
Star Wars humor doesn't always work on a 33-year-old like jaded guy who's seen a bunch of Star Wars, but like that like hit, like it was so good, it was so funny. Yeah. And then of course the next episode is Rick Famuyiwa, who is like, I don't know, he might be my favorite Star Wars director at this point. I mean, he's consistently incredible. And like, if Bryce is like perfect at doing like the Clone Wars thing, I feel like Rick is perfect at doing like the sort of A New Hope, Return of the Jedi thing. Like he gets it too in such a great way. You see two sort of Coruscant-esque cities in these two episodes, and like you see how two different filmmakers sort of interpret that, and it's gorgeous. Like we sort of open with that, it opens with the Blade Runner riff, right, with Elijah Kane.
And the back streets, and the streets seemed very similar to like kind of the rainy streets or the like, I guess, droid streets, or the night streets of Plaisir 15. Like it felt very similar, like these two episodes. But yeah, it's Elijah Kane, like again, more Philip K. Dick. Like definitely like that cyberpunk, like Coruscant that George envisioned in the show Underworld.
Oh yeah.
It like that felt like it's coming back, that like look of Coruscant, with the lights and very Attack of the Clones. And Kane, meets a probe droid and uses her TK 2755 number, right? So she's very much still like, I am an Imperial person, and it displays Moff Gideon, and they have a quick conversation about what is going on in Navarro and the Outer Rim. Gideon reminds her that the New Republic has been ignoring this area, but Eli's like, no, the Mandalorians are like working together. Don't you understand? They've become very powerful because all the disparate pieces of themselves as the Mandalorians. So this is like a big metaphor for integration of the self, but as a culture, and you're more powerful when you are together. The same idea that we were just talking about with Plaisir. And Gideon is like, wait, they're working together, how is that possible? They hate each other. Yep. And Gideon's like, still continue to blend in and keep things, and he'll deal with the Mandalorians. And then we get this shot of this sort of First Order, or the intro of the First Order, shadow counselor of all these ex-Imperials that are trying to figure out what to do next. Gideon walks his way through several laboratory like tanks on the wall, like, and we're like, oh, is this the Snoke thing again?
Yeah, they love to play with that, like sort of gesture toward
and they're
basically
exactly, and they're sort of they meet up and they all talk about what's going on with the New Republic and what the Order is, and trying to make sense of I don't know what they're trying to do next. And they comment on how they have to try to remain disorganized warlords, like, to the New Republic, but that they're actually way more organized and they have way more resources.
It's very much like a weird echo of like the dawn of the rebellion era, like with the rebels in the show Rebels, or in Luthen Rael's network in Andor, like that idea that like, we have to appear disorganized, but also they kind of like fight over resources. So they've still got that Imperial, I gotta be impressive. I gotta impress my boss, and, make us look good, that sort of Imperial quality to them. But yeah, it's fun. It's like the best look we've gotten at the post Return of the Jedi Imperial Remnant, in this sort of murky era, on screen,
like out of
anyway.
Chuck Wendig's books, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And where they name drop like heck. They've got Grand Admiral Thrawn, hails the reemergence of the Imperial military. When soon as he comes back, we're just waiting for him. And we get a good shot of General Brendel Hux, who of course is our Admiral Hux's daddy. That guy's a real son of a bitch. Like, if you know him from like Phasma or from Chuck's books, he's a jerk.
Yeah, I don't remember like details, but I remember that Hux is kind of like he was kind of made a monster by his dad, right? Like that's kind of the idea.
And we sort of end up getting through this conversation, which is like the most well written dialogue that we've had since the beginning of this season. We get a sort of 3 different, horses that these Imperials are, I guess, putting their kind of effort behind. We have Thrawn, of course, returning, and then everybody would kind of go behind Thrawn. We have Project Necromancer, which I assume is, sort of Snoke and the return of Palpatine. Like that kind of.
That was my assumption too. Sort of Exegol,
and then we have Gideon, who's like, but I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm just a humble man who's just trying to do what's best for the Imperials in this galaxy. And everyone's like, yes. Yes. But yes, essentially, Gideon is trying to take control of these different factions, but play it off like he doesn't want control at all. Mm-hmm. They end up granting his request for Praetorian guards and sort of extra pilots and ships and bombers, as he has a plan for the Mandalorians who are attempting to retake Mandalore. Which all of this information he learned from Eliakim, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he went and talked to somebody else. So again, this idea of like the spies being plural, I don't know that we have a confirmation of that yet.
Yeah. Like sort of everybody is like suspicious of all these characters at this point. Which is
because it's a plural.
Fun, but yeah. But yeah. I would bet on somebody being, some kind of double crosser by the end of this, but
okay. So before we get into it, who do you think the other spy is? I'm the spy, as Hux says.
Shoot, I don't know. I mean, so you've got one of them is Elia.
It has to be somebody. Yeah, Elia, of course. And
then
confirmed.
somebody's there, everybody would assume it's somebody on the good guy team, the Mando squad.
So I'm going to talk about the name that most people are saying, and then I'm going to get your reaction. The Armorer.
Yeah, it's funny because like a couple episodes ago, or last episode, I sort of said like something about the Armorer being suspicious, and
I'm like, what are you talking about?
You're like, listen, man, go back to therapy. No, but it was great. It was a great discussion. And yeah, I noticed that is a popular theory. And of course, now I'm suspicious of it because I don't want to just,
but like,
project my issues.
I mean, okay, so if she's the spy, like literally all she's done is saved wounded people and children.
Yeah.
Like
it doesn't quite add up if it's, I mean,
like it feels like it's out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I feel like Axe Woves is like way more likely. He has problems with Beau being in charge, and he will like do things for money.
Yeah, like him or Saska,
Yeah.
Somebody from that crew. Saska has been, I think that's her name. Been in the show a lot, off and on, and been kind of like, untrusting of again, like that. I think that's a character who's very anti Children of the Watch, right? Like more, I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky because there is that bit of dialogue about, Maul's crew, like Death Watch or whatever,
yeah.
and then the Armorer is
Death Watch was before Maul. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maul had his own like crew with the red and black and stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
Like
it's kind of like
the Mandalorians are always getting caught up with following the wrong leader. It feels like
I put a lot of emphasis on that sword.
Yeah, and
which is funny.
And like there was a whole deal about Beau is the leader by every means possible to axe wolves, and he's still not happy about it. He has way more reason to not be loyal to Bo-Katan and what she wants to do and these other weirdos than, anyone else. And people are still like, that armor, man, evil. It's really weird. And if that's the way it ends up going, like, I will be like, I guess everybody else will be like, haha, proven right. Armor, evil, with like zero reason.
Yeah, it would definitely need a good explanation. Yeah, it would need to click into place in some way that I'm not thinking of yet. But it's, I don't know. I go back to like that first, I think it's like episode 1 of the season where like Beau is all alone in her castle and all these people that she was running with before have forsaken her.
Yeah.
So that to me, that feels like supporting your theory of like Axe or
somebody in that crew, right?
Yeah.
Like it definitely doesn't feel like it's like the armor's been living in the desert in a cave.
Yeah.
How would she be the spy? She didn't even have a ship. I don't understand people. It's literally like so out of it's definitely has to be something to do with like our psychology of motherhood or like those feminine archetypes, because man, she did nothing wrong and everyone's like evil.
Yeah, I mean, she's more of like a spy goes out in the world, and she is more of like a hermit who sits in the underworld. Like
she's a crone. She's like,
there you go.
Yeah, like she's like I'm gonna sit here and stare at my forge and tell you about the future.
My cauldron or whatever.
Cauldron, like this dark feminine. Like, oh man.
Like that ring world that they were hiding out on her and Paz too, like that was not like a the center hub of the galaxy where she's gonna get all this information, right? That was more like just kind of scoundrels living on the fringes, right? I mean, I don't see it. I mean, as a spy, that doesn't quite make any sense. Obviously, I was suspicious of her before because that's just kind of been in the air for a long time. And, but spy doesn't fit.
Well, okay. So we have Beau, who basically was like, you've been brainwashed to Din, and then has come to a place as a character where she understands that what the armorer's way of approaching, things is not to be discarded whole, right? Like there's things about what the armorer is saying that is actually very important. Beau and Din and the rest of the Mandalorian fleet return to Navarro, and Grogu is sitting in Beau's lap. Grogu's gotten closer and closer and closer and closer to Beau this whole time, and is now just like sitting on Beau's lap, whereas Grogu used to only sit on Din.
Yeah.
It's like, and this is our child now. And I still don't put it past Jon Favreau to not kill off Bo-Katan. I'm just going to put that out there in the universe.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm genuinely like so scared for her.
I was just asking myself that question 20 seconds before you said that. So that is terrifying that we were both like, are they going to kill? Because like there is some sort of like premature Twitter panic about Din Djarin dying in the finale or something.
Oh God, no, he'll be fine.
And to me, it's much, much more likely that Beau, because of how she comes into this story.
It's going to be Beau or the armor, I think. I think it's going to be the armorer. In all truthfulness, I've thought that for a while. She's such a cool character, and it would be an absolute shame. But I don't put it past Jon Favreau just to kill off a woman character.
I hope not, but it seems like we're at that point where they're going to kill off somebody important, probably in this heroic fashion, and it's gonna be painful. I really hope it isn't Beau. That would suck. I mean, but
literally, like Katie Sackhoff, and you got Katie Sackhoff back, and Katie Sackhoff is playing the same character that she was able to play in the Clone Wars, and then you kill her off. I really hope that they don't, because Bo Katan is such an interesting character, and the relationship between Din and Beau, I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with this.
More and more, especially in this episode. They like get married in this episode. Like, let's be honest.
Where do you think they get married?
Isn't it this episode? Yeah. So, it's like nighttime, and he like pledges himself to her.
Oh yeah, like his full life, like night pledge to say, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ser Jorah, I think, in Game of Thrones, where he's like, I'm a total simp for you for life, my lady. Like that kind of thing,
no, absolutely. It totally is. And like the cool thing about night vows like that is that they were more binding than marriages in some medieval societies.
Oh, nice. Interesting.
Yeah. But, we'll get there. We'll get there. But they return, and of course, there's a lot of like animosity between Paz Vizsla, and of course, the new joiners. Karga comes to visit. Grief Karga comes to visit with his protocol droid and says, I have a present for you. And he has refurbished IG-11 into IG-12 with the Ancillin droid smiths. And they had stripped out the memory circuits, so we've got no IG-11 anymore. Boo. But it can be used as a little like Master Blaster, like Mad Max Escape from Thunderdome, a little driving setup where Grogu can pilot this droid and now can walk and fight for himself and his big, and can say no. And this absolutely feels like the moment that your toddler turns to be 4, your young little kid turns to be 4 and is an absolute terror.
Yep.
You got like little kid vibes, right? Like suddenly this kid's like, no,
totally.
No.
Yeah, it's
you've been through the stage. You're like, this was flashbacks I didn't need.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 6-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, and the 2-year-old daughter is like, oh, my innocent baby girl is perfect, and then occasionally she'll be like, give me that, that kind of. Yeah. So it's we're sort of getting Grogu trying to interface with the world in kind of like an adult fashion, and failing a little bit. It's fun. I don't know. This
was great. This was showing like the advancement in Grogu that I always wanted, right?
Yeah.
Whereas it makes it like, I don't know, it makes it weird in Star Wars to have him like piloting around this IG unit.
And it feels unique. Yeah.
Yeah. And his ability to go like, no. Which feels like a little kid who's growing up and is like, is that all you know? Is that the only world you know? No.
Yeah. I mean,
it's so good.
Kids there's a lot of repetition, and there's kind of like, it can be a little nonsensical, but they know what they intend to say, and they get frustrated because they can't communicate it. But yeah, like my son will say yes to like so many questions. Like you could ask him almost anything, and if he doesn't want to deal with you and give you a real answer, he'll just be like, yes, things like that. So it's kind of funny.
Do you remember who suggests going back to Mandalore? Is it Beau? Like she says she wants to send the Recon Party?
That's a good question.
I think it's her that says like it's time to retake the planet.
Yeah, she asks for volunteers given that speech. Yeah, I think so. I think basically she's like giving that speech about how yeah, and I don't think the armor really speaks until she volunteers, like kind of last, right? Like
to go.
I think that's how it plays out. Is like it's Beau is leading, and then
Din is like, "I'm there for you, babe."
yeah. It's like all the cast that we are like familiar with, like immediately volunteer, and then there's like some like young, fresh faces who are like, "I'll go and die tragically," and then the armorer is sort of like last. Great scene. It's like very much that Willow thing of like, let's talk around the campfire and then sail off into the darkness or whatever.
Yeah. When that moment where he like pledges himself to her, when does that happen? Did that happen on Navarro, or was that happening?
I believe that happens after they encounter the sort of old the other Mandalorian clan.
Right.
The
ones that survive,
the new characters, basically.
So they head to Mandalore, and of course the scouting party is heading down to the surface, and they drop sort of a bunch of Mandalorians to check out everything first, and then we have Beau who lands after, and they're approached by a ship. And this ship is manned by a bunch of surviving Mandalorians who have sort of lived their lives in this apocalyptic hellscape. You
invoked Mad Max.
Mad Max again.
Crew definitely feels Mad Max-ish. Because they're sort of marching off into this like dark, cloudy desert. It's like very biblical, and then it like opens up these like sails, right? It's kind of like a sail, like I don't know. It's cool, like a sail sled or something, but like a giant vehicle. And you've got Charles Parnell from Top Gun Maverick, who was like Warlock. He was sort of like the good cop in the to John Hamm's bad cop. Always like those were the two guys explaining to Tom Cruise why he couldn't do the thing that he was about to do. And then you get Charles Baker, who is like Skinny Pete from Breaking Bad, which made my heart very happy. Love that character. But this great acting.
Suddenly turns into a Night Sea journey. Which is of course comes from it's a mythic motif that especially Carl Jung talked about a lot, but it comes from the idea of Ra sort of going across the sky every day and then being swallowed by the earth and going into the underworld and sailing the underworld seas and being reborn through the course of that journey. And the most recognizable Night Sea journey I've seen before this was, of course, happened in Willow, episode 7. This was great too, because over the course of being like on this trip that they're on, the different aspects of the Mandalorians are all coming to the surface, and basically they have to talk about them, right? Like the survivors are like, "Who are you guys?" to the armor, and the armor's like, "We're from the moons of Concordia." And they're like, "You guys were the Death Watch." And she's like, well, not really, because we've all been splintered and we're no longer them. We're no longer what those people were. And basically, it comes down to this big fact, which is, as Mandalorians, they are stronger if they are actually able to work together. If they are divided, that's how they destroy each other themselves, right? They destroy each other from the inside. No other enemy can actually destroy them.
Yeah. And like there's also this thing that happens. I don't know how much of this is mythology and how much of this is like how it actually happens. I've never like been in the military or off to war, but there's this like idea or trope, I guess, in like war movies where, things like class and race maybe are a big deal when these guys are at basic training or whatever, like early on, but then they go over to do combat somewhere, and like in that, the act of being together in the trenches, like that stuff kind of falls away, right? But it's probably not a perfect thing. So it plays like that, but then it also plays like them sort of working through their issues, the way that the characters in Willow did, with all the
like smoothing
the training and the fighting,
smoothing out all the rough patches. And of course we get a fight aboard. We get Paz and Axe Wolves fighting. And them working through their issues. I guess this is where the suspicious part comes from, that the armor leaves with wounded people.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I guess we're blaming ambulance drivers now for be spies.
Everything is suspicious.
Everyone's suspicious. I guess.
It's a very paranoid time for our society. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting how like they use the chess game as like these little variations and rules as kind of like
can they get along? Yeah, can they even
cultural differences and all that?
Well, and how separate they've been for so long that they've developed a different set of rules for something as simple as chess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still on this, like, seriously tell me what she's done that makes you suspicious.
The armor.
Other than existing.
Yeah, I think that I've tried to be really a lot more open-minded in the last couple years as to like what people think about Star Wars fandom things, and just kind of like hear people out and meet them halfway. And I think a lot of people have that sort of scary religious upbringing that I didn't really have that much. I mean, maybe like I went to like a friend's church occasionally as a kid and was like, oh, it's kind of weirds me out, I guess. But I'm not like anti-religious, I don't know. Like I'm just kind of like not like religion isn't really my bag, but I'm not to that point where people are like, oh, she's like a cult leader. She wants to brainwash them and therefore has like really, bad intentions. Like there's a lot of historical precedent for that. We've seen that in Star Wars even. But I don't know. A lot of it is just kind of playing into those assumptions and stereotypes of, because there are rules and traditions, right? Like, I don't know. It's like people really want to rebel and reject rituals and traditions, which is like a pretty natural part of growing up, right? As you like, oh, I hate all these things that my parents want me to do. And then you get to be like at a certain point in your life, and you're like, oh, but I kind of like this one thing. And, I like this other. And which is kind of what like Beau has gone through in season 3, I guess. And
I don't know. Like, is Jon Favreau maybe exploring his interesting sort of heritage with this? Like, I just don't think that with all of the care he's given the armor and the covert, that like the armor who's been like protecting these people, I think it's far more likely she's going to sacrifice herself for everybody.
Yeah, at this point, and maybe we would have said this in season 1, but at this point, it's definitely like she is the mentor figure for Din and
now Beau
at this point.
Yeah.
She's kind of the Obi-Wan.
I just don't
Luke Skywalker figure.
Don't get it. I just don't get I don't get it. I don't.
Well, I mean, this happens to Luke Skywalker too, and I don't want to open like a whole can of worms, but like people can kind of take what is it, like mountain out of a molehill or whatever, like people can like glom onto like one little thing in a story and kind of really hate a character for something that in the realm of fiction is like not that big a deal, right? And so I don't know if that's like what's happening here, but it's like, there are people who are just really allergic to certain characters or certain iterations of characters. And, when you have like that sort of older mentor figure, or like the character that is very set in their ways and has like these rules, I mean, like, obviously, like, the Jedi are like a flawed institution, and institutions, I'm kind of against institutions anyway, but I'm not one of these people who are like, the Jedi are bad and the Jedi should never exist, and like, it's good that they all died. Like, I don't quite like relate to that. And I think it's like a similar thing happening with the Armor and the Children of the Watch. It's like, that like sort of anti-organized religion thing. And yes, there are like evil mega.
I think it comes down to like mythically what's happening during this whole part, right? So I mentioned it's a night sea journey, which of course is associated with depression or working through this idea of the disparate ideas of yourself. And it is synonymous with a descent into the underworld. Like I said, with Ra, like traveling in his night barge under the earth, basically into the mother. It sails over the sea like an immortal god who every evening is immersed in the maternal waters and born anew in the morning. And like the mother of this group of people, symbolically is the armorer. She leaves at the end of the journey when they get to the end. It also can be associated with, being swallowed up by a dragon and basically being caught up in removal from the outer world and not thinking realistically about where you need to go and what you need to do. And so there's a lot of things happening symbolically. It really is important to get over the fact that you have had these different pieces of yourself cut off and figure out how to actually integrate them back together. And that's what the Night Sea Journey is doing in this episode. And in the end, there's a giant monster at the end. Right? And then they're swallowed by the earth to be reborn. And we don't get that far, actually, because they end up fighting sort of ogres under the earth.
Yeah, they're sort of down there battling their demons in the underworld. These, like the skeletons or wraiths or whatever.
Yeah, like the Dark Troopers, which are a combination of Imperials who have killed them and Mandalorian armor, which protects them.
Yeah, it's like that sacred substance of their people, their civilization, but also like, the clone troopers, like the visual of the clone troopers from like Revenge of the Sith. And so it's like all these things swirling together of
and like
all
in Rebels they had the Imperials that were working or the Mandalorians that were working with Imperials, and they had like Imperial stormtroopers, but like they were Mandalorians. And you end up getting wolves fleeing to the surface right away like a chicken. He's the sus one. And the other Mandalorians fighting with their blasters and trying to fight off this group of people. But, Din ends up getting captured by like the troopers and held. And then we get the gloating Moff Gideon arrive in his Dark Trooper suit. And he basically, it is this symbolic equivalent of a Dark Union, where he's saying he's trying to basically subsume all of these different aspects of all of these different groups. Like, he's like, I'll take the Imperials, and I'll take the Mandalorians, and I'll take the Jedi and the clones, and I'll create a new way of being. Just exactly the way that like Palpatine would. He would take all of these different aspects as their like Frankenstein monster parts and put them together instead of allowing them to be whole, good and bad together. And he's like, I'm going to complete the purge. I got my TIE bombers, my TIE interceptors. I'm prepared to strike the Mandalorian fleet. And, you know, and Gideon's like, hand over the dark saber.
It's funny. It's like there's all this like sort of cultural appropriation happening with him, but he's very like Thrawn like in how he goes about things. Like it's going to be interesting to see if those two ever share the screen together and see what their differences are.
Yeah,
because I feel like Thrawn is kind of defined by a lot of similar things, like that tactical patience and like confidence, but also like again like that being like an expert on the other person's culture with like the paintings and stuff. I think that's all kind of carried over from Heir to the Empire, like where it's sort of like the dad in Get Out, anyway, that's sort of my memory of Thrawn from that book, when I read it like 15 years ago or whatever the hell. But it's a fun exploration of like other kinds of violence besides just like war, right? Like it's like, hey, I'm wearing your Beskar, like this like sacred thing, it's good. I don't know. And in his defense, that suit looks really cool.
Oh no, so, absolutely. Yeah.
At the same time, like, I feel like, there's a lot of heavy topics in these two episodes, but at the same time, it's, you still get him looking sort of like this Vader Boba Fett, hybrid. That's just kind of, because it's Giancarlo, you ultimately kind of want to root for him on some level.
Yeah. Beau ends up using the Darksaber to allow the rest of the Mandalorians and Grogu to leave. And we have Paz Vizsla, who basically makes a last stand at the blast door and fights down the troops. And Beau's like, hey, come with me. And he's like, nah, there's too many. And then like, basically sacrifices himself. And he's stabbed several times by Praetorian Guard, it was kind of cool to see them back again.
Yeah, we get like, 3 of them. And it's sort of like halfway between like Palpatine's protectors and like Return of the Jedi. And then
Snoke's Praetorian Guard.
The ones from, very cool.
But that's where we leave him dying on the floor. And I just want to say, I've always said that Jon Favreau's self-insert is not Paz Vizsla. That's the character he plays. His self-insert is Din. So there's no way Din is dying.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
People are so weird.
Yeah, I can't imagine that Din would die, like, especially, before the show ends. But, even at all, like, even when the show does end, it's hard to imagine him just not living happily ever after in some fashion. But
yeah, I'm obsessed with the Grogu points of this episode where Grogu like stops the fight between the Mandalorians. On the ship,
smashing the no button.
Yeah, he looks at the insulin the wrong way, and the insulin's like, no squeezy.
Oh
yeah. And of course, just the fun in the market where Grogu's like just eating stuff, and Din has to pay for everything. It's so good.
It's it's very, very like true to life of like kids wanting to just. They see something they want, they grab it. You can't take them down the toy aisle, or they're gonna want 3 different toys, or just want every food item in sight. That's very fun.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on these episodes as we gear up for the finale?
Not really. I mean, it leaves. It's very like this ends with sort of part 1 of a 2-parter. It feels like. I don't know if Rick directs the next one too, or
he does. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It felt like that. Like he directed almost like a movie to close out the season.
Yeah.
But, which I'm all in favor of. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on where all the things that have needed to happen for like almost 3 seasons of the show in some ways are happening. We're getting, the Mandalorian people are sort of synthesizing into one, again, and they're trying to retake their worlds. And, Grogu is growing, he's not just like a cute little cooing baby anymore.
Yeah. Well, and he wasn't really in the second season either. So it just feels like we're getting back to that way, and they're giving him a way to be physical and say no and be a toddler or like a 4-year-old. It was more like a 4-year-old kind of thing.
Yeah. Like something to do besides just like use the Force to like hold back the monster or whatever, like that.
Yeah,
he's sort of like got more versatility with that suit, and I'm sure the suit thing won't be like how we see him all the time, but it's like it's cool
fun for now. Yeah,
device. It helps solve that issue of like, oh, we've got this tiny little puppet that in this big world, and that's tricky. I mean, but yeah, it's a good solution.
Yeah, and like overall this season, I've really loved it. I don't know. It's a lot of fun Star Wars, and I'm really looking forward to the finale.
Yeah, I think this is probably my favorite season of the show so far. They've just gone to interesting places consistently, and I don't know. I care about the characters, pretty deeply.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely, if there's this idea that somebody could die next episode because is it Brendan Wayne? Is that his name? Yeah. He sort of warned that it could hurt or whatever he said.
Oh man.
I care what happens to these guys, and that's, one of the biggest compliments you can give to a show like this, that you really are invested. And you're not just sort of watching it passively. You care about the happiness of these, made up people. It's been good, and I love having Esposito back as the villain too.
It's been good to have him back. Yeah. Well, let's wrap up this episode, and if we missed anything major we want to talk about next week, we will include that in the finale of season 3 of Mandalorian. Where can people find you if they're looking for you online, Alex?
I'm on Twitter at AlexJKane with a K.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is orchestral music by Christy Carew for What the Force. You can support the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody in Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Christian Luca, Carly Ann, Josh Johnson, Scott C., and Susan. Support the show by wearing the Force with our merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other podcast apps. It helps people find the show. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook. Our website is whattheforce.ca, or you can join the Discord. Links are all in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.